In Breaking Bad, why did Walt force his son, Walter Jr., to drink during the party celebrating his shrinking tumor?
To be clear, he didn't force his son to drink, but allowed and encouraged him. Even goaded him into doing so. And he did is specifically because Hank was trying to stop him. Walt and Hank have had an ongoing dynamic for quite some time. Hank is loud, boisterous, exudes confidence and braggadocio, and tends to dominate every room he's in, and Walt's always been the opposite. Look at Hank's first scene in the series. It's Walt's 50th birthday party, and he meekly stands off in the corner while Hank sits in the middle of the room, dominating the party with loud and exciting anecdotes, while everyone gathers around him, hanging on every word. He makes the appropriate nod to it being Walt's celebration, and throws enough compliments in Walt's direction to make himself the de facto master of ceremonies. Then he interrupts himself to turn attention to the TV, as he's being interviewed on the news. Hank's not a malicious guy, he almost certainly doesn't do it intentionally, he's just such a flamboyant and self-asserting figure that Walt always got swept to the side. It's implied, more than once, that Walter Jr. respects Hank more than he does his own father. Or, at least, he has a certain admiration for him. Marie says as much when she thinks Walter Jr. is smoking pot and asks Hank to intervene. When Walter Jr. gets busted trying to buy beer, he calls Hank to get him out of it. That makes sense, as Hank is in law enforcement and has some pull in that situation, but it also puts Hank in a very parental role, lecturing Walter about his life decisions, but also cutting him a break and promising to keep it between them. This whole relationship is a microcosm of Walt's relationship with the whole world. He feels overshadowed, brushed aside, and treated as unimportant. In a lot of ways, it's worse than malice. The world doesn't care enough to beat him down deliberately, it just kind of ignores him, and he's always been too meek and scared to force others to stand up and take notice. When he finds out that his cancer is getting better and he's not immediately dying, it upends everything. He has to accept the bad things he's done and realize that he's going to live long enough to face consequences. That drives him to start asserting himself in a much more aggressive way. The whole pool scene is symbolic of that shift. Hank is taking charge and running the situation like he always does, and Walt resents it. Instead of allowing him to, Walt seizes control, and demands that things be done his way. Importantly, what he's demanding is clearly a bad thing. He's getting his underage son drunk and ends up making him sick, but he doesn't really care. It's more important to him that he gets to call the shots, and he doesn't knuckle under when Hank tries to stop him. It's at this point that Walt consciously decides that he'd rather be in control, even if that means doing something destructive. It's a basic shift in his character, and one that drives the rest of the series. Walt starts the show as a powerless man. This is frequently illustrated in the relationship between Walt Jr. and Hank. Walt Jr. looks up to Hank as a powerful man and role model in comparison to his father, which disturbs Walt. This is most clearly established in the first episode at Walt's birthday party. By the time that party you mentioned takes place, Walt has established himself as a powerful man outside of his family life. What we are seeing when Walt makes Walt Jr. drink is that power being inappropriately applied over his son and aggressively displayed at Hank. Walt believes that he, not Hank, should now have power over Walt Jr. He revels in Hank's discomfort at the situation, and welcomes the conflict with Hank. For Walt, this is a kind of reckoning he believes he has earned and will win. It's also not clear that Walt welcomes the news of his cancer's remission. Terminal cancer was the catalyst and justification for his new life, a life in which he feels he has power, and he fears going back to the way things used to be. When Walt makes his son drink, he may also be trying to establish power outside of his criminal life because he fears his criminal life may have to end along with his cancer. I don't recall the state of Walt's criminal dealings at that time, but it's usually tumultuous, and he could have ample reason to think his second life as a drug manufacturer may not be sustainable. He is trying to latch on to that power in new ways. Finally, Walt is an unstable figure. He appears to frequently struggle with his own mental state and doesn't always act rationally. Walt is portrayed in part as a man finding power but being unable to wield it appropriately. Forcing his son to drink and making a scene at the party is an example of how he cannot control his power. I love this show. There are 2 questions that need to be answered. I will answer them one by one. 1. I can't understand why Walt's upset to begin with. Cancer gave Walt focus in his life. He has long been looking for some midlife crisis. He has since convinced himself that whatever he is doing is right and is what needs to be done. Everything has been going as per the big plan. He estimated that he will make enough money for his family and die. His family or anyone he cares about will never get to know about his methamphetamine business. End of story. But, when he gets to know that Cancer has just gone away just like that, he is caught on the wrong foot. He doesn't know what to do now. How does he now live for a few more years and not get caught by DEA or get shot by some drug mafia? All calculations go awry. He never planned for it and obviously he can't go back to his old life. He is thus upset with thoughts of all the different things that can go wrong now and for the wrong things he did in past, including meth cooking. 2. Why did Walt force his son, Walter Jr., to drink? This outburst had been building for some time now. Hank occasionally makes his fun that he is not a man enough. In his right senses, Walt, though getting kind of bullied, would never get back to Hank. When this happened, Walt was really upset, not thinking clearly, evident in the fact that he is getting his son to drink second shot of tequila, not a mild alcohol, even before Hank intervened. And as they sit by the side of the pool, Hank is the one doing all the talking. It's still about Hank, his stories, his jokes. It has always been. Even his own son would just keep listening to Hank. All he has gone through for his family seems like waste. He wants some respect and people to listen to him. He decides to show who is the boss. Getting his son to drink is his way of doing so. He is frustrated enough already, and when Hank interrupts before the 3rd fill and takes away the bottle, that's it for Walt. Now is the time to face Hank. That's why he then says, "It's my son, my bottle, my house." He is not afraid of Hank anymore since he now actually feels quite powerful due to his drug business and situations he had to deal with during same, including killing other people. I bet he wouldn't have cared getting physical if not for Junior Walt vomiting in the pool. This is not a short answer and there cannot be. This is the beauty of this show. Whatever happens has its seeds long back and is result of many things put together, accumulating over time. The 2 things that emerge about Walt as the story develops are that he is extremely prideful and stubborn, and that he has to always be in control. One of the show's most consistent themes is how these traits dominate Walt's judgment and lead him to throw away better opportunities for himself, and also to hurt the people around him. This scene is a good example. For whatever reason, his stubbornness and his need to be in control emerge in this scene. Like software programming in Walt's psyche, these 2 programs initiate and inform his behavior in this scene. Walt is marking his territory and showing Hank that there is a fence that he can throw up to keep him out of Walt's family anytime he wants. The only results that anyone could expect from making a scene like this scene would be hurt feelings and damage to the relationships with the others, but Walt is possessed by the thrill of doing something he shouldn't, because it is something that forces his control over others. Hank has always came off as the alpha male in their family, and he has always seen Walt as a nice, harmless guy. Because of Walt's secret criminal career, he now has the resources and knowledge to be the alpha male, and he also has way more money than Hank. But no one there knows it. So in this scene, Walt is making the move he would make as the alpha, because he knows that that is now what he is. Nobody else there knows what he's been up to, so the move is a huge surprise and seems bizarre to them, because they don't know what is behind it. But Walt is saying, "I'm not what you think I am." He is declaring himself, as he does later in the desert when he tells the other dealer, "Say my name." This isn't a calm and calculated move on his part. His pride and demand for control are like a fire, and that's what is driving him. There is a thrill to doing something without regard for the consequences that he can't resist.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future also. Don't forget to like and subscribe to you never miss a video.